Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Anniken and I design knitting patterns and teach knitting workshops, and I live in the southwest of England. I post videos every week, every Friday, and I post a combination of knitting tutorials, my Confessions of a Yarn Addict podcast, and yarn and knitting product reviews. So today I've got a yarn review for you and also a look at my new design, which is published in Knitting Magazine issue 228. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing and please leave a comment. If you're new to the channel, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, welcome to you as well. I really appreciate you giving me a few minutes of your time, and do give the video a thumbs up if you like it. So today I'm going to talk about this design, which is in the new issue of Knitting Magazine, issue 228, which is in shops in the UK now. And I'm also going to talk about the yarn I knitted it in. So this is a yarn review. I'm going to give you a look at the actual design, but I'm also going to specifically talk about this yarn. The yarn is Cottage yarns, which is a British indie dyer, and it is Keld Aran colorway bark. And Keld Aran is 90% superwash, extra fine merino and 10% linen. It has 180 meters or 196 yards per 100 grams, and the recommended needle size is 4.5 to 5.5 millimeter. So the recommended needle size and hook size, crochet hook size, is 4.5 to 5.5 millimeter. I don't know off the top of my head what that is in American sizes. The labels from Cottage yarns also give you the wraps per inch, which is shortened as WPI, which is something that mainly hand dyers use. But I think a few yarn companies also put this on their label, and it can be very useful when it comes to finding a yarn of similar thickness for yarn substitution purposes. So this yarn has 10 wraps per inch. To measure wraps per inch, you basically take something like a ruler or any kind of thing, and you wrap the yarn around for an inch, which is about 2.5 centimeters, and then you count how many times you've wrapped it around for that inch. You can get special wraps per inch tool. I've got one somewhere from when I used to do a lot of spinning. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a look at this design. So we'll start with that, and then I'll talk more about the yarn in a minute. So this is a cardigan. Now I've got it on my wicker dress form, which isn't ideal because it's not kind of that proportionate, but it's a small one that I've got in my office. But it's not kind of in proportion, and it's probably not the right size for the size I knitted this sample in. So it's a cardigan. It's got buttons down the front, as you can see. It has moss stitch in the middle, and then these cables on the side. So if we look at the cables, it's got this, hang on, let's see if we can hold it up so you can see it properly. It's got this kind of cable that goes in towards the middle, and then it's got a regular 4-stitch cable either side. So an 8-stitch sort of double cable, I don't know what you call these cables. 8-stitch cable in the middle and a 4-stitch cable either side, and it has the same on both sides. And then on the back it has the same, so moss stitch in the middle and then a cable panel either side. This top is a little bit, this dress form is not the best to film this on because it's not in proportion. It's got long sleeves with a rib at the bottom. The sleeve is all in moss stitch, and it has a rib at the bottom. And it is a drop shoulder sleeve. So if you see here, you can see that from the underarm, it actually goes straight up to here, which isn't that easy to see because the moss stitch kind of blurs that seam a bit. But you basically just knit straight up, so there's no shaping for the armholes, and then you pick up stitches around the armhole and knit the sleeve in moss stitch from the top down, and then finish off with a rib at the bottom. And on the bottom of the body, it has a rib below where the cable panel is, but then the rest is just in moss stitch. And then the button band and the neck edge is knitted in button band, and I use 5 and 5.5 millimeter for this design. So I think I started with 5 millimeter and then moved into 5.5 millimeter, but I can't remember that exactly, and I haven't actually double checked the pattern, so do refer to the pattern. But it is knitted at quite a loose tension, because I wanted it to have plenty of drape. So this is the yarn that we're talking about. Very neutral color, very unusual color for me to knit it that such a neutral color. So let me tell you what I thought about the yarn. So just so I can show you a little bit more close up, that is the swatch I knitted for the design. So when I design something, before I write the pattern, I have to knit a swatch to measure the stitches, so I know how many stitches per inch or per centimeter and that kind of thing. And because this has quite a lot of moss stitch, but it also has these cable panels, I had to measure the tension both in moss stitch, so that is the moss stitch part of the swatch, but I also wanted to know how wide that cable panel measured, because the tension in the cable panel and moss stitch will be different. So to measure to work out the circumference accurately, I need to know the moss stitch, because that's what it is most of the garment is in moss stitch. But then I did need to know the width of those two cable panels as well, because they will probably be smaller than the same number of stitches over moss stitch. So say if you did 20 stitches over moss stitch and 20 stitches over cables, the moss stitch would be wider than the cable section. So this yarn has plenty of drape, and then I knitted a swatch. I actually knitted this swatch this morning. I did knit a stocking stitch swatch when I knitted the my other swatch. Not quite sure why, but I think I actually intended to film this yarn review, and then I didn't have that much time before I had to post a sample of, so I posted it and I never got around to filming the yarn review. And then the garment actually came back yesterday, which is probably like a week or two before the magazine get published. So by the time I release this video, the magazine will be published, but I'm recording this earlier just so it's ready. So this is the swatch I knitted in stocking stitch this morning. So you can see it's got a very nice even stitch definition. This yarn is an unusual yarn in that it has superwash merino and linen. I'm not a huge fan of pure linen yarns. I've had a bit of a mixed result with pure linen yarns, to be quite honest. And when I chose this yarn, the editor of Knitting Magazine and I had actually originally chosen a different yarn for this design. But when she emailed Eden Cottage Yarn to order the yarn, I don't think it was available, or there was going to be a delay or something for the yarn we'd chosen in the colour we'd chosen. So the lady who does all the emails at Eden Cottage Yarns emailed us back and said, what about Keld Aran? We've got it in this colour and we can send that straight away. So I was immediately intrigued, because I'd seen Victoria, who runs Eden Cottage Yarns, I'd seen her post on her Twitter page about this particular yarn, about Keld, the Keld blend of yarn, and the fact that it was linen, had linen in it. So I was quite intrigued. So when I had the opportunity to try this yarn, I thought, yeah, let's go for it. So merino usually has quite a lot of bounce in it. Depending on how many plies it is, if it's several plies, it can be quite a round, bouncy, elastic yarn. This yarn only has 2 strands, 2 plies. So if I was to untwist the yarn, you'll see that it's made up of 2 strands of yarn. Let's see if I can separate them here. So you can see it's made up of 2 strands of yarn. It's very, very smooth. It looks slightly silky. Now, one thing to talk about while I'm talking about the number of plies. So the number of plies is how many strands is twisted together. Plies can also be used to describe the thickness of the yarn. So I'm talking in plies here as it relates to the number of strands that are spun together. Now, yarns that have 3 strands or more, so 3 plies or more, tends to be a rounder, bouncier yarn with better stitch definition and more even stitch definition, and is usually considered to be better for cables. Now, I must admit, I didn't know when I agreed to use this yarn how many plies it had. I just knew that I was intrigued and I fancied using it, so I didn't know that it was a 2-ply yarn. Now, I know a lot of designers who design a lot with cables would normally avoid 2-ply yarns or recommend you use a yarn that's got more than 2 plies for a cable design. I don't necessarily agree with that. I also know from experience that a yarn that has 2 plies is really well suited to lace. So it would be interesting to see what this knits up in a lace pattern. I didn't have time to knit up a lace swatch for this review because I'm working on another deadline, so I didn't do that. But it has a really nice even stitch definition. I probably could have done this if I was going to do a garment just in stocking stitch. I might have tried this on 4.5mm needles as well as 5mm needles, because it is a little bit of an unevenness there. But sometimes you don't know whether that unevenness is because of the needle size you used or because of the yarn. So I might have, if I was going to do a garment in stocking stitch, I might have tried 4.5mm needles, but normally I would go for 5mm needles. When it comes to the cables, I think it has quite a nice stitch definition. I think the cables, they don't pop out as much as maybe it would have done if it'd been a pure merino that had several plies, but I think it certainly has very good definition. I think the cables look lovely in this yarn, and I think the moss stitch looks really nice as well. Now, one thing you will notice with this yarn is that sometimes it has this slightly slubbier bit. So if you can see here, can you see there's a little bit that kind of looks like it looks like a darker color. Well, this is a bit of the yarn where it wasn't spun to quite to the same thickness as the rest of the yarns. There was a little bit of what we call a slubby bit, a slightly thicker bit. So you do get a few of those kind of unevenness in this yarn, which I quite like. It gives it a little bit of a more of a kind of rustic texture, I think. In fact, I would describe this yarn as being a little bit rustic. You can't really tell that it has linen in it when you knit with it. Linen can be quite a harsh yarn. I've knitted with pure linen yarns before. I've knitted with linen and silk blends. Don't think I've ever knitted with a linen and merino blend before. And you can kind of tell it's not pure merino when you knit with it, but you can't tell that there's any linen in it. Although occasionally you do get a little bit of linen, kind of like here. Can you see that? That's kind of like a little bit of linen thread, I guess. This is on the swatch I knitted earlier. It's on the back, so it doesn't matter, but just, I guess that's the linen. But you can't really see that when you look at the yarn. I don't know how the linen and the merino actually blends together, but when you look at the yarn, you can't tell the linen most of the time. But you do occasionally get these little bits that kind of stick out from the fibers. You can sometimes tell it, but just looking at the garment kind of overall, it doesn't jump out at you. So do I like this yarn? Yes, I really liked it. It's really lovely to knit with. It has really good drape. It feels really soft. It feels just as soft as any merino yarn I've ever touched. It has a slightly sort of, not as much sheen, it doesn't have as much sheen as a yarn that has silk in it does. Like if this was a merino silk blend, it would have more sheen. But it does have a little bit of just a little bit of sheen to it, I would say. What kind of things would I recommend for this yarn? Well, I would be really interested in trying it in lace, actually, for a lace pattern, so I might have a go at that. I think it is suitable for any kind of garment or accessory where you want a reasonable amount of drape. If you want a fabric that's fairly firm and doesn't have too much drape, then it may not be suitable, because this yarn does, in my mind, have a lot of drape. So if you want a garment that's soft and has plenty of drape, so you know, sort of slightly floppy, I don't know, don't think floppy is the right word, but has lovely drape, then I think it's a really good yarn for that. Perfect for garments, good for accessories, hats, scarves. I'm not sure that I would knit a cowl out of it, because a cowl quite often wants to have like a little bit of wants to like hold his shape a little bit more maybe. So I wouldn't necessarily knit a cowl out of it, but I think shawls, hats, garments, anything like that, I think is soft enough. So if you don't like, if you find yarns itchy next to your skin, I think this is very soft. I'm obviously not going to say that nobody would react to this, because I have family members who react to yarns that I don't. So but it doesn't feel itchy. I'm probably fairly average to sensitive when it comes to yarns and their itchiness, and for me it's definitely soft enough. I wish I was this size, because I'd love to wear this cardigan. It is really lovely. So I do really like this yarn. I think it was a interesting yarn to knit with. As well as being available in the Aran weight, which I use, this is also available in the fingering weight, which is 4-ply essentially. It doesn't look from the Eden Cottage yarn website that it is available in DK or lace weight. It looks like it's just fingering weight or 4-ply and Aran weight. To sum up, I really like this yarn. It has got a beautiful handle, beautiful drape, very soft. 2 plies, as in 2 strands plied together. I really like this yarn. I think the Eden Cottage yarn colorways are absolutely beautiful. They tend to be more neutral, softer colors rather than neon colors, for example, really bright neon colors. They tend to be more sort of softer, muted, more neutral colors, but they do some absolutely gorgeous colors. So if this neutral color isn't quite your thing, they do loads of other beautiful colors as well, so do check out their website. As in terms of how many meat, you know, the kind of value in this yarn, we need to think about the meterage and stuff. 180 meters per 100 grams is quite a lot. When you think that the average 4-ply fingering weight yarn has around 400 meters per 100 gram. This one has 180 meters. That's quite a lot, I think, for an Aran weight yarn. So I think this is really good value for money. I can't remember how much I used for this design, but it wasn't very much. I had a whole skein plus partial skein left over. So that's quite a lot left over from what I thought I would use. So I'm really impressed with this yarn. Really like it. I've definitely used it again. I will put all the links below to Eden Cottage yarns, and if I can find the link to the magazine on the knitting website, knitting magazine website, I will do that as well. The magazine issue 228, I think it is in the shops in the UK now. So if you fancy having a look at this design, do check it out. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or any comments, please leave a comment below. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. And thank you very much for watching. If you're a new viewer, I hope you will stick around and subscribe. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you for joining me again. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.